So, my name is Ajahn Santutthi, and my mother has just walked into the room, and she told she told me that if I get nervous, just imagine that everybody is a potato. And because I used to be a chef, I see potato chips. Okay. So my name is Ajahn Santutthi, and I've been a monk for 12 years. And I'm basically a Perth boy. I moved to Australia from Vietnam, I think in the 1980s. And I've been here for the most part of my life. I lived 5 years over in the East Coast, spending time in Wat Buddha with Ajahn Kema. I went to Aramore Catholic College. Did anybody go to that school? It was the best school ever. You should have went there. Oh, we got one in the back over there. So tonight I would just like to talk about how these teachings have helped me over the years, and try to share with you, and hopefully you can use them to help with whatever you're looking for in life. A lot of people do come here. I think just earlier I was just watching a video on YouTube, and it was Ajahn Brahm giving a talk, and he was giving a talk here, and he had to go to Jhana Grove Meditation Center to continue on with the 9-day retreat. So he wasn't able to stay here afterwards to receive guests to talk about stuff. And basically he was saying that if you have, he was talking about people having problems, if you have problems with your husband or problems with your family, I'll just give the talk now, and then at the end I'm going to leave and go back to Jhana Grove. So a lot of the reasons, some of the reasons why people come here is because they have problems in their lives, and they're searching for an answer or a different perspective on how to look at life. And being a monk, we also go to the monastery for the same reason, but we just do it in a different environment. We live out in the bush, we wear robes, we keep a lot of rules, but essentially we are practicing the Buddhist teachings. And in the same way with you guys just coming here, you have your jobs, you have families, but you're practicing the Buddhist teachings as well. And I think one of the reasons why monks can relate to lay people is because we have something which is in common, and that is we all have a mind. We have a mind that thinks, a mind that suffers. We also have a body as well, a body that gets hot, a body that gets cold. Monks have their own types of suffering. Now I'm an Ajahn, I have teachers suffering. I have to come out here and teach, and this is my first time doing it. And beside me I have Venerable Nibbutto, and he's a young monk, and he has young monk suffering. He has to carry my bowl wherever I go. He has to put out my sitting cloth. He has to treat me like a senior monk. So monks do have their suffering, and lay people have their suffering as well. You may have, I don't know what type of suffering you have, but you have suffering, right? You have difficulties, you have problems. And living in a monastery, you get taught these skills on how to overcome difficulties in life. And one of the ways of doing that is to change, the way you look at things. Change the way you look at things. A nice example is the Ajahn Brahm talks about the colouring book. You get a colouring book. It has, when you were a kid, a picture of a dog or a frog or whatever, and there were, there's lines, and you just colour the lines in. And some of us, because of our attitudes, we colour the picture in like dark colours, and and some of us who have a more happier outlook, we colour it in bright and colourful colours. And a lot of the problems that arise within our lives is because of how we look at things, instead of appreciating things around us, we start to find fault. When you start to find fault with the situation or find fault with the people, you're painting that colouring book with dark colours. But if you can learn how to accept people for who they are, no one's perfect, and everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. And if you look closely, and if you have an open heart, you can always find something to like about a person. They may not be perfect, they may be a grumpy person, but they're not grumpy all the time. Especially when you're living in the monastery. I've been around for a long time. You see the raw products of people coming in, the young monks, and you'd have all sorts of characters coming in. You have the lazy ones. You have like the grumpy ones. And so when they come into the monastery, they're in their whites, the anagarikas, but they get put in an environment where only good things can happen from it. You're in a Buddhist monastery, you're surrounded by good monks, and these good qualities, they sort of get instilled in you naturally. And Ajahn Brahm would always say it's sort of like walking through the mist. When you're walking through the mist, you can be walking through it for hours, and then before you know it, all your clothes are soaking wet with the mist. And in the same way, when you're surrounding yourself, like in a good environment, like a monastery for us, all those good qualities, they get instilled in us by just being around a place like that. So I think it's important in one's life to surround oneself with good people. Yeah, good people coming here. You meet a lot of good people. There's been Buddhist. I see a lot of familiar faces. Buddhists who have been practicing here for about 20, 30 years. They've been practicing longer than me. Maybe they can teach me a few things. And just surrounding yourself with good people does lift up your spirit, does make you feel a lot happier. And it's not rocket science. This practice. It's you have to use your wisdom and put yourself in the right environment in order to achieve the happiness that you want to achieve. And there's this this is one monastery that I visited in Thailand, and the teacher is his name is Ajahn, and he's sort of known as the happy monk, and it's just through his happiness and through his kindness and through his loving, through the amount of love that he has, all these people just come to him and they want to become his disciples. They want to learn from him. He doesn't have magical powers, you know. He doesn't give you a blessing and then all your problems go away. He sort of like lives like a earthy, a real type of, you know, style of Buddhism, and it's based on, you know, compassion, loving kindness. And because of that, people just come to him. And his monastery, there's a lot of monks, there's a lot of lay people, and if you step back and think about it, you know, why? You know, why? So many people, and there's a lot of happiness around. You know, why? And it's because it's not just because of him. It has a lot to do with it, but it's the people in the place. You know, the monks that go there, the lay people that go there. It's like a whole bunch of people coming together with great attitudes, with a lot of goodness in their heart, and that just makes everybody, you know, develop that same mind. And you can sort of like, you know, it's sort of like you can sort of feel these things, you know, when you go to a good place. You can actually feel the good energy. When I was younger, I used to go to nightclubs and mess around a bit, and I went to this place, and just walking in there, it just felt so dark and gloomy, and there was like a bad vibe. And the reason the vibe was like that is because of the type of people that were there. You know, they were unvirtuous. You know, these were just young kids just wanting to be cool. You know, wanting to be like gangsters. The young Vietnamese gangsters back in the day. You know, they would go clubbing and they would start fights and, you know, do all sorts of stuff like that. And you can actually, when you're like in and with and around those people, you know, you feel a bad vibe. It doesn't feel good. And the reason why is because you look at what they're doing, you look at their actions, you look at the way they think. You know, they want to cheat people, they want to harm people. You know, as the Buddha said, you know, these are like unwholesome states of mind. And the Buddha didn't encourage these unwholesome states of mind. But he asked as Buddhist practitioners, he asked us to let them go, to throw them away. And instead he asked the people who believed in him, who thought that he was a great man, he encouraged them to develop wholesome states of mind. You know, the mind of loving kindness, the mind of goodness, you know, all that sort of stuff that you've heard here many times by Ajahn Brahm and by Ajahn Brahmali, Ajahn Api. And you know, what I'm saying here is probably nothing new. You've probably all heard it before, but it's good to get that. Good to get reminded, yeah, from time to time. It's actually quite inspiring to hear monks talk about these good qualities that we can develop. I think one of the reasons why people get inspired is because they can relate to it. They have tried and tested the teachings of the Buddha. You know, when the Buddha asks you to be kind or to be caring, you've taken that on board, and you've applied that in your life, and it works. And because it works, when you hear it again, you become inspired. You become uplifted. You become happy, because these teachings, they are true and they work. So navigating through a life as a monk, living in a monastery, there are, it's at times, we have a bit of fun, and that's for sure. It's not boring, and in the monastery, Ajahn and Ajahn Brahm. Ajahn Brahm is Ajahn, and I just want to tell a story about how monks from time to time we just talk in a very casual way, in a light-hearted way. We're having a bit of fun, poking, teasing each other, and it's just one of these stories that I think is a bit funny. And so it's Ajahn Brahm, Ajahn in the monastery. In the monastery, before the so in the monastery, when you start to get to know the people living in the monasteries, we have our habits, and so you can sort of expect things coming from certain people. So Ajahn Brahm and Ajahn they have this thing going on, and there's this thing going on, and Ajahn Brahm, when it comes to his health, he's not really bothered. He likes his mashy peas, he likes his fish and chips, he likes his roast. And to him, the philosophy of having a healthy body is having a healthy mind. And Ajahn he is not the complete opposite, but he's sort of like mainstream, healthy, conscious kind of outlook on food. So it's raw vegetables, fruit, tasteless food, vitamins, garlic pills. And the thing is, when they collect their food, they because Ajahn Brahm is walking in front, Ajahn Api walks behind him. So Ajahn Api gets to see whatever Ajahn Brahm puts into his bowl. So if you really want to know what Ajahn Brahm likes eating, you have to ask Ajahn Api. So as Ajahn Brahm is putting the roast pork, putting the pork crackling, putting the chips into his bowl, Ajahn Api is saying, "Ajahn, if you keep on doing that, you'll get a heart attack." And Ajahn Brahm would say, no, no, I'm not going to say that. And Ajahn Api would say, "You should eat your vegetables, and you should eat your fruit." And Ajahn Brahm says, "I do eat my vegetables. I eat potato chips and apple crumble with double cheese and cream." Double cream, not double cheese. So, I'm just painting that picture for you to let you know that monks, in a very real way, we're just like you. We're just like you. We're human beings. We're nothing special. We have our problems, we have our ups, we have our downs. And we just try to live our lives according to the Buddhist teachings, because we understand, through experience, that these teachings work. And that is what, I encourage, people to do, is to experiment with the Buddhist teachings. You know, and that's what the Buddha said when he taught the Kalama Sutta. He told people not to believe him by just because somebody said that he was a great monk, or that that he was the Buddha. He said to put these teachings into practice first, and if they work, that's when you can start believing in me. So living as a monk in a monastery, it's this path of training the mind to try to make it happier. It's very experimental. Monks have their different characters, so certain teachings work for them. And one of the teachings that work for me is to live in the present moment, to be here, to live right now. And, and hanging out in the present moment for the past 12 years, you come to understand that a lot of your problems disappear when you're living in the now, when you're living right here. Just think about it. How can you be worried about something if you're living in the present moment? Worrying only happens in the future or in the past. And living in the present moment, I think, has its benefits as well. Sometimes people think, where does the happiness come from when you see monks who come here? Or where does the compassion come from? And I think it all, you could say the present moment is the soil that these beautiful qualities grow from. Qualities of love, qualities of happiness, the wisdom. It all grows from this soil we call the present moment. And you just got to give it a shot. Just try to spend as much time in the present moment as you can. And a story that illustrates that is a story from Ajahn Chah. Yeah, Ajahn Chah. He's turning 99 tomorrow. He's a great monk. Much respect, much gratitude to him. He, as Sol said, he was basically the founder of this tradition in Perth. And without him, or you can bring it back, without the Buddha, without him, there wouldn't be no Ajahn Brahm. And without Ajahn Brahm, there wouldn't be no Santuti or no Nibbutto. So it's all thanks to Ajahn Chah. And the reason why, and he was a great teacher. He lived in northeast Thailand, taught in a very simple way, a very practical way. And it's basically incorporating these teachings of Dhamma into your lives, how you can use them in a practical way. And the thing with the Dhamma is it's something that doesn't fix your problems straight away. You have to be patient. You have to be able to wait. And what you do is you put it's sort of like when you're marinating something, like carrots or whatever you want to marinate. It doesn't marinate overnight. It takes a few days, maybe a few weeks. But if you want to get something marinated really good, sometimes it takes a few years. Especially, in Asia, how they like the fermented smelly fish. I wonder how long that takes to ferment. But to make something that good for some people and something that tasty, you need to give it a lot of time. And it's the same with this practice. There's no magic pill, there's no magic teaching. How many times have you come here to listen to Ajahn Brahm crack jokes and give you Dhamma teachings? How does it really fix the problem? Does these teachings by itself fix the problem? And the answer is basically no. And what actually does fix the problem is to put these teachings into practice, is to incorporate them into our lives. And going back to the Ajahn Chah story, it's basically a story about living in the present moment, being mindful. As I said, that is one of the practices that I really enjoy doing, just living in the present moment. And I think the more in the present that you live in, the more open you become, the more you're able to receive life as it is. And what I mean is, like, when somebody is cracking a joke, you can laugh at it. You're more open, you're more present. You can receive things like that. Or if you see, if you see somebody who's in need or in need, they might be going through a bit of pain, a bit of trouble. Because you're living in the moment, you're open to it, you can actually see more. You can see their suffering, and because of that, you can act accordingly. And Ajahn Chah said one time, there was this, you probably heard this story, it's told by Ajahn Brahm a lot of times, and Ajahn Chah was teaching. Yes, he was teaching. He was teaching. By then he was a very famous monk. So this was before the days of the internet. His fame was spreading, worldwide. And so this person decided to fly to see Ajahn Chah to get a few teachings. So he travelled from, I think, Melbourne. He took a flight to Thailand, and from Thailand he had to travel to Ubon, where Wat Pah Pong is. And the way he got there was by train. So he made his way to Wat Pah Pong, where Ajahn Chah was living and was teaching. And at that time, and this guy said, this teaching that Ajahn Chah gave him changed his life. So at the time, Ajahn Chah was surrounded by people answering questions. So this Westerner thought, Ajahn Chah is so busy. Maybe I don't have time to talk to him, so I might as well just make some good karma, and hopefully the crowd will die down, and then once he's freer, I can come back and talk to him. So as you in Thailand, one of the things the monks do is they sweep a lot. So when you go to the monastery is like very clean, very inviting. People like to go there. So this Westerner saw monks sweeping the path, so he decided to make some good karma. So he picked up a broom and he started sweeping, and he just continued sweeping, and he kept on sweeping. And then Ajahn Chah finished with receiving the lay people, answering questions, giving advice. And he was walking towards his car, and Ajahn Chah saw this Westerner. And being a great master, being a person who lived in the present moment, he understood what was going on. I don't think he read his mind or anything like that. But he saw this Westerner and sort of knew intuitively that this person travelled all the way from somewhere to see him. And this Westerner wasn't looking at Ajahn Chah, he was busy sweeping the paths in the monastery. And Ajahn Chah was heading off to another meeting. So before Ajahn Chah got into the car, he tapped this person on his shoulder And he said, whatever you do, give it 100%. And then he left. And that person caught up with Ajahn Brahm a few years ago. I don't know if you know, I heard this story a few years ago, so it must have been longer, maybe 10, 15 years ago. And he retold the story to Ajahn Brahm. And he told Ajahn Brahm that this story changed his life for the better. And so yeah, you know, if you understand that story, you know, whatever you do, you give it 100%. You know, if you're just from the most mundane thing to the most highest thing you can do, like waking up in the morning, brushing your teeth, you just give that 100%. See how clean you can brush your teeth. And, you know, when you're at work, working for somebody, see if you can give it everything. You know, be a good worker, help out, do your best to please your boss. If you're a good worker and if you please your boss is happy. And if you have a happy boss, he treats you well. And if he treats you well, you work more efficiently, you work more better. And then that's what you're doing there, is you're creating a good relationship. And when it comes time to ask for a pay rise, he'll say yes. Yeah. So yes. So yeah, living in the present moment, those are the ones. This has been quite a long talk, hasn't it? 35 minutes, it's felt like a very long time. Maybe I should stop. What do you reckon? Okay. I'm going to have a drink. Have a pause. Everybody seems very relaxed. Yeah, that's good. Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you make people feel. That's what Ajahn Brahm told me. Just come up here, tell a few stories, crack a couple of jokes. That's all you got to do. And then when they're laughing, their mouths are wide open. You heard it all before. You throw in the pill of wisdom. So yeah, Buddhism does bring you happiness. It's about letting go. It's basically about freeing your mind from all the clutter that it has. Put simply, this is how you create a happier mind. The Buddha said, he taught two things. Put that down. He taught two things. He taught two things. He taught suffering and the end of suffering. A very simple teaching. If you can end the suffering, and basically the suffering is in here. Nowhere else. It's not in your husband, it's not in your wife. It's all in here. If you can straighten this out, then your life will be okay. Things will start to come together. You know, they always compare Buddhism to like a tree. You know, when you plant a tree, you put it in the ground, you fertilize it, and you just allow it to grow. And then one day you have flowers. You know, it's like a natural process. And it's sort of the same thing with this mind. You understand which direction to guide it, you know. guide it in the direction of being less cluttered, guiding it in the direction of letting go, of not holding things. And that's sort of like starting off on the path, like this little sapling growing. And then you just continue on that path. You continue doing the same thing. And that's basically, that's all I do. I just do the same thing day in, day out. A very simple practice, but over the years I've seen it working. And that's all you do, just these simple principles, and you let that sapling grow. And over the years, you continue to unclutter, you continue to let go, you start to feel more space in your mind, more freedom, you're living in the present moment. And when you start living in the present moment, you start to have more energy in the mind, a brightness of the mind, a clarity of the mind. And that's where, happiness comes from. Not coffee, Probably good coffee. I think if you have good coffee, there's a bit of happiness there. We do. We do have a couple of coffee snobs in the monastery. There are a couple of monks, but I won't say their names. It's going to be a big secret. I don't want to get in trouble by them. So like I said, it's just these simple teachings, simple practices that you do on a daily basis, year in, year out. It's like growing that tree, it becomes a sapling, and then it becomes it gets bigger, and more beautiful, and then the flowers start coming out, and that even makes it even more gorgeous. It's sort of like the Buddha said, this path is an ever-increasing path of happiness. That's all it is. Like he said, he teaches suffering and the end of suffering. And the more suffering you can let go of, the more happiness that you can have, in your hearts and in your minds. And yeah, I think 40 minutes is good enough. I'm just searching in my head, what should I say next? All right. Any questions or comments? Okay. Yes. Yes. Oh, you need the mic. Huh? Where is he now? He's in Canada. He's in New York. I haven't been to New York, so I asked him, can I be your attendant? He said, yeah, only if you can fit into the suitcase. No, he didn't say that. I just made that up. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Ajan, for such a... You're amazing. It was just so lovely. You're so funny, and you just emit joy. It's just wonderful. My question is, what if in the moment, you really are suffering? Like if you've got, a lot of pain, or if you're in war, if there's... How do you deal? I mean, it's fine to have in the moment when you don't have that. Yeah. But, some people are they have a lot of pain.
Yeah, like physical pain?
Physical pain, yes, or depression, or, as I said, there's been violence, or they've grief in the moment.
Yeah.
Things like that. How do you explain being happy in the moment?
They're in a very difficult situation. If you have a lot of physical pain, sometimes having a good attitude can not even soften it, but just allow you to accept the situation that you're in. there's like, I have a friend and he's a nurse, and we talk about people dying from time to time, and he basically told me that there's two types of people that die. There's a type that go gracefully, and the type that fight. They want to continue their lives. They want to, do whatever they can. And their attitude is like a tough attitude, like a rough, even angry attitude. And they have a very hard time letting go of their bodies to allow it to pass away. But the ones who are accepting of their predicament, they go gracefully. They know that they're going to die. This is like a big part of their lives. It is a huge chunk of suffering, but they understand life is life. You live, you got to die. And because of this understanding, they're able to just go gracefully. And I think it's in the same way with like chronic pain. When you have chronic pain, you can either have two attitudes towards it. You can be, negative, or you can have a positive attitude. And in a situation like that, you can't do anything with the physical pain. You can take medication, and if medication works, just take it. But because that's the physical body, you can't really do much about it. But with the mental suffering, you can just do your best to just change your attitude and learn how to accept it. Yeah?
When I lost my son, what really helped me was the support of all my friends, Buddhist friends. My mother turned against me, so it was a very difficult time. However, because of the beautiful Buddhist people, the community, everyone chanting for my son, for his next lifetime, and knowing that that we are still connected through other lifetimes, that helped me enormously. Absolutely enormous. My sister lost her son. She's a Christian, and it was like the end. And she, 20 years later, she's still suffering.
That's terrible.
Yeah, and I mean, even though I had a lot of grief, I still had a lot of joy.
Yes.
And that joy came from the Buddhist community.
Yes. And I think that is the case. You can't monks come in and say, "Oh, let go of everything and everything will be all right." But in the situation that you're in, that grief that you felt, that's to be expected. That's a part of the human nature. And as a Buddhist, there's no shame feeling grief, or no shame, being angry or anything like that. We sort of know that it's a quality of the mind that is not very helpful, so we don't indulge ourselves in it. Like the saying, you suffer and then you add suffering over it. It's sort of like double dukkha. And with people's grief, you can grieve about it, but just grieving about it on and on and on and on and on, that's not going to be very helpful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ajahn Santutthi, thanks for the wonderful talk. Yeah.
Yes.
I'd like to acknowledge, what you said earlier. You said earlier, when you listen to the Buddha's teaching, it does not solve your problem. Only when you put it into practice does it solve your problem.
Yeah.
That's an excellent statement. That's how we should all approach Buddhism, through practice.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you. I'll just answer a question. Oh, yeah? Yeah. I think they want to get it recorded. So yeah, just wait for the mic.
Ajan, thanks for the talk. It was,
I
appreciate it. Do you
No
have
problem.
any? Sorry.
No problem. My pleasure.
Do you have any advice on how the monks practice contemplating non-self?
Oh, that's such a deep question. Well, huh? I can sort of have a shot at it. I don't know it's going to be right, but the way I see it, put simply, there's sort of like two parts to life. There's the the active part and the non-active part. This is for a monk, or this is for lay people. Like the active part is, what you do in daily life. You got to go to work, you got to do this, you got to do that. The non-active part of life is like the meditation practice. And how I always understood it is that when you see your mind becoming quieter, becoming more still, you can see the sense of self disappearing there. This is like, because when you're sitting down, it's sort of like you think, I'm a carpenter or I'm a husband. You're putting a sense of self like into the story when you're meditating. So when you see, things disappearing, the mind becoming more quiet, you're letting. I think essentially you are letting go of a sense of self, not the whole thing, but bits and pieces of it, until you like get really deep meditation and you completely let it go. Yeah, that's sort of how I see it, in that kind of way, from more of a practical point of view. And if you do get quiet in your meditation and you do get peaceful, sometimes you become scared because your sense of self is being challenged. I don't know what your name is, but you think, oh, where have I gone? I want to exist. So then you start getting scared, and then you start thinking again. You start thinking about what you want to do tomorrow, what you want to do the next day. And that's that sense of self arising again in your meditation practice. So you can actually see it happening when you meditate. Like the quieter you get, the more sense of self you're letting go of. And it does, sometimes when you get really quiet, it does get scary because you're not there anymore. And the reason why you get scared is because you want to be somebody, you want to be you. Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Yeah. Yeah, just answer. Okay, I have trouble overcoming the attachment to what I have and the desire for what I don't have. Also fear about the future. Do you have any advice for overcoming this feeling? Joe's from Ecuador. I have trouble overcoming the attachment to what I have. Yes, attachment. The reason why we are attached to something is because we find value in it. That's why we are attached to it. And it just depends on what we're attached to. If we like attached to a car or attached to, our money or our jewelry, those things, they mean something to us. But that's why it's difficult for us to overcome that attachment. When you start seeing that these things are not so important, you can let go of the attachment, with these things. And he said, attachment is, attachment is like holding on to something. There are good things that you can be attached to, like kindness and freedom and things like that. And there are also things that you can attach to that can cause you problems and suffering, like if you're attached to alcohol. Like drinking too much alcohol is not really good for you. You get drunk and you do stupid things. So, like take for example alcohol, just see the problems that it causes and see how much money that you're losing You know, you just like, you know, you just see the difficulties that these certain attachments do cause, and because of that, that gives you like an incentive to let it go or to overcome it. And he also asked about fear about the future. How to overcome that? Well, basically understand that the future is uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You're not going to know what's going to happen in 10 years' time. Because of that uncertainty, you can stop thinking about the future. And when you stop thinking about the future, that fear disappears. Okay, Lionel from the USA. Is it really possible to completely change the tendencies of the mind? Can a negative dark tendency be completely eliminated? I think just over time. It is possible, because if it wasn't possible, then the Buddha wouldn't teach Buddhism, you know? Teach the path to awakening, to the ending of suffering, to eradicate everything. So according to the Buddha, then it is possible to completely change the tendencies of the mind. You just got to give it time. Okay. Thank you. Okay, bow to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Arahant, right? Yeah. Arahant Sama Sambuddho Bhagavan Buddhang Bhagavata Abhivadeni Wakato Bhagavata Namo Dhammanamazani Supatipano Bhagavato